apply, whether it's on visas or on economic assistance or military assistance or other things. Those are all the kinds of tools you would use for other diplomatic efforts, but it's putting the combination together, getting across-the-board effort from the government. I think one of the things that adds to that, though, is the efforts of individual members of Congress. People do pay attention when they hear you and your colleagues speak up on these issues because they know that decisions that affect them are made in Congress as well as in the executive branch, and it really amplifies the message we're trying to get across.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Did you want to?
Yeah, if I may add, H.R. 390 has passed the House. It's now in the Senate. In the Senate, it was amended to include assistance to the Syrian population. It would be terrific if this passed and there was more funding appropriated immediately for that, for genocide victims.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, did you want to ask questions?
If the chairman would allow.
I think I have no other choice but to allow.
Oh, but you do. I want to thank you for having this hearing, Chairman DeSantis, and for your commitment to religious freedom. Dr. Farr, it's good to see you again. I asked you a question during the last administration, and in the interest of fairness, I'm going to ask you the exact same question under this administration. Leave Congress out of it for a second. Just focus on the executive branch. What are the 3 things that you would change if you could at the executive branch level, given the fact that we have had a change in administration? What are the first 3 things that should be done from your perspective in this sphere?
Thank you, Mr. Gowdy. Speaking as a fellow South Carolinian, one of those things has already been done, and that is that this goes to something Mr. Lynch asked about earlier, and that is the budget cuts in the State Department. I agree with Mr. Brzezinski that this was a bad idea, but one of the good things that has happened, in my view, is that the Office of International Religious Freedom has become larger. And so long as the positions that are being moved in there are being moved with the funds to support them, which I think is the case, but I'm not sure. As long as that is the case, that is a good thing. So what I'm talking about is more staff and more oomph for the Office of International Religious Freedom. The second thing, the Wolf Act, requires, and that is that the ambassador at large report to the Secretary of State. Now, as already been mentioned here, I forget who mentioned it, it may be my colleague to the left, thank you for mentioning it, in the same letter where Secretary Tillerson moved these or proposed moving these positions under the ambassador at large, he said he's going to report to a lower ranking official. Well, this is pretty clear in the law. The ambassador at large shall report to the Secretary of State. Why is that important? Is that a magic wand? No, it's not. It, in fact, however, improves the status of the ambassador at large in the office, in my opinion, for the governments out there, and just as importantly, for American diplomats who have seen historically this position as sort of a, just below high level, let me put it that way, within the State Department. I think it's very important, and Congress should, in my view, insist that the ambassador report to the Secretary of State. But the final thing, the third thing, Mr. Gowdy, is the subject of my testimony today, and that is that the international religious freedom policy of the United States is not yet aligned with our national security policy. It's not an all-of-government thing. It is still focused in a single office with not enough oomph to do this. This may be changing under this administration. There may be something in the national security strategy of the United States when it's produced that draws religious freedom in, as I think it should be. But that is a major, major remaining step to take, in my opinion. Thank you for the question.
Yes, sir. You touched upon what I find to be a fascinating dualism in your opening statement, that our national security interests are actually advanced when countries have more enlightened policies with respect to religious liberty. I like to anticipate arguments on the other side, and sometimes the other side, I don't mean Democrats, I mean the other side of this issue, sometimes folks on the other side, which are both Republicans and Democrats, will make the argument that we need to be more patient with the following countries because they are of such significant national security interest that we should overlook the following things. You made the exact opposite argument, and I want to give you a chance to extrapolate on that.
Well, thank you. It's pretty broad without focusing on a particular country, but the ones where this happens, such as Saudi Arabia, that's a very good example of where we need the support of the Saudis. We need cooperation, intelligence, military, otherwise. And yet, it is the mother lode of Islamist extremism. It is the place where the ideology that energizes Islamist extremism begins. We need to do both. There is no simple answer to any foreign policy question, let alone one that has to do with religion. I think we are deficient in providing to the Saudis reasons why it's in their interest to begin not to adopt the First Amendment or move toward religious freedom in the broad way that we view it here, but toward religious tolerance because it can begin to benefit them. And in fact, we have opportunities. The regime itself talks a very good line internationally when it talks about its approach to their own religion. We should be working, and we are working, but I think we treat this almost as a boutique issue. We don't have enough resources working with the Saudis behind the scenes to convince them it's in their interest. The same would be true of Iran. It would be true of China. It would be true of any country where I believe we can make this an all-of-government effort to convince them it's in their interest. That's a broad answer to a broad question. I hope I'm being responsive.
You did. Thank you, Dr. Farr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.